Okay, so we're doing 605. This is day one of Leetcode 75. We're doing can place flowers. So we have a long flower bed in which some of the plots are planted and some are not. However, flowers cannot be planted in adjacent plots. And we'll go over the examples of what that actually means. So given an array integer flower bed that contains zeros and ones, where 0 means empty and 1 means not empty, we have an integer and we have to return true if n new flowers can be planted in the flower bed without violating the no adjacent flowers rule, and false otherwise. So we have a flower bed, for example, 1 here, which has a flower in the 0th index as well as the 4th index, I believe. And essentially, we have only one new flower we can plant, and by following the no adjacent flowers rule, we can place this one flower right here because so no adjacent essentially just means that we can't have two ones sticking by each other. We can't have two flowers right next to each other inside of the array. Okay, and as you can see, if we have input of two flowers, we are not able to place it because that would violate the adjacent flower, the no adjacent flowers rule, since we can only place one new flower, and then we would have one flower left that we cannot place, so that means it's false. We cannot place two new flowers inside of the flower bed. Okay, so the way that we can approach this problem is essentially that basically we're trying to minimize n, essentially, so we can mutate this number. So we'll just return whether n is less than or equal to 0, which just means that we can place n new flowers. We're just trying to see a binary output, whether we can place n new flowers or not, right? And what we can do here, just for boundary constraints, we can like ensure like basically like if we're gonna go through the flower bed, we're gonna iterate through the flower bed, and in each position we're gonna check the left position and the current position and the right position. We're going to see if there's any flowers in any of those spots. If there's no flowers, then we can just we can decrement n, and we can make the current positions, the current element become 1 because we've placed that new flower inside of there. Just so that when we go to the next element, we know that we cannot place a flower since we just placed a flower in the previous position. Okay, so let's go ahead and try coding this out. So we're gonna iterate through the flower bed here, and we're going to grab the previous position, which is just gonna be equal to the flower bed at the -1 if I is greater than 0, else we'll just have it as an empty plot, because technically, like if we're at the end here, say that we're just starting off and this was actually 0, this position in index 0 was actually 0, the element is 0, then we know that like let's say the right position is 0 and there is nothing on the left hand side, so there's no adjacent flowers, so we can just make this 1. Okay, so we can do the same thing for the next position, which is just I plus 1 instead, and we're going to check if I is less than the length of the flower bed, we're going to check at least the current index is less than the length of the flower bed, -1, else 0 as well. So this will go up until, so we want to make sure that at the last position here that essentially like if we're at this position, if I is less than the length of the flower bed -1, then we're going to set this the next position value to 0 since there's nothing at the end of the array, right? So in the current position is just going to be the flower bed at I. Okay, now all we have to do is we have to just check if the previous position or the current position or the next position, any of those are truthy, then we can just pass, or if any of those are 1, then we know we cannot do anything. And just for the sake of simplicity, we'll just I could just flip the conditional values, but just for clarity, we can say flower bed at I is going to be equal to 1, and we can decrement n. Then we'll just return whether n is less than or equal to 0. the reason why we can't just do current position is equal to 1 is because of the way like how assigning variables work. Essentially, we're assigning this new variable, which is a new container, to the value of whatever this element is within that index within the flower bed. So we have to actually be setting the element the index within that array to be 1 instead of this current position a variable. So we can run that, and that will work.